clubs making up what would be titled Super League 2, with the money from Sky Sports dropping to around £25 million per year next year from its current level of £40 million per year. Some clubs were concerned about the impact of diluting the share of the income that each club would receive by inviting another two clubs into the competition, even though it would only be for 1 year. And let's face it, we know that clubs are all very concerned about diluting their share of the income.
Yeah, and phrasing it in that way shows it's about how much money they're getting. But there has to be a conversation as well for me about, in doing so, diluting the quality of the competition. I mean, we've seen a club come in on less funding 2 years in a row now, really, with Toronto and getting no funding, and then Lee coming in on a reduced funding, and between the two of them, they haven't won a single Super League match in 21, 22 attempts. So,
Yeah.
giving the clubs less money isn't a recipe for success. And even though they'll be on an equal footing, you'd think if there was more teams with the other teams, if they got equal funding, you still would see that as a reduction in quality. And my biggest worry is that the quality is going to drop, and basically Lee are not performing like a Super League side, so why would we want to bring in two more Championship sides when we've already got one in the competition? I think it's sensible to, from a quality of competition basis, to stick with the plan that they formulated at the start of the year of the 12 teams, one up, one down, rather than mess again more with that. Even though ideally 14 teams would give us a more balanced schedule, I'm not sure I'm not sure there's the depth at the moment. That's my take on it. So I think this is sensible.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, we've got to pick something and just stick with it. Let's stop trying to change things constantly. Let's stick with something. Say we're going to give it 5 years or however long, and actually, give people time to work with things. Because, I'm not sure as a team I would have wanted to come into Super League at the point that Lee did, knowing basically it felt like a bit of a poisoned chalice, didn't it? Yeah, you can come in, you've got less time to prepare than anyone else, and by the way, you're not getting as much money as anybody else. How did anyone think it was going to work?
Yeah, I think they were just hopeful that one or two clubs would have horror years and it'd give them an opportunity. That's all I can think. I mean, we saw London be really competitive a couple of years ago, but they would not be competitive now with the setup they have at the moment there, with the side that they've got losing to anyone else in the Championship.
But yeah, they had really built towards it, hadn't they?
You feel like they'd grown from within, certainly, and then added a couple of good players that outperformed their standing maybe that year.
And they had a very, very good coach, I think, in Danny Ward, who made sure that the sum total of his players was greater than the total of the individual parts, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And then since then, we've just seen nothing but defeats from the promoted sides. So I'm sort of trying to not just say I don't like promotion and relegation. I don't see how it's made the competition better at any point. But but I know within the sporting culture that's dominated by football, where promotion and relegation is a bigger thing, that's what we kind of get left with in our sport in this country, this part of the world. So yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying about sticking with something. I wonder, when you look around and think, what are the things that fans moan about the most? At the moment, fans moan a lot about loop fixtures, don't they? Or repeat fixtures, or whatever you want to call them. And 14 teams would be a sensible way to remove those to some extent, you would think, and maybe just have a magic weekend, because we operated that way for 6 years. But in those 6 years, crowds declined. So that makes me think, are loop fixtures really the problem? Because in the 6 years preceding that, we had loop fixtures. We didn't call them loop fixtures, but we had them. People might forget that we had them, but we definitely had them. And crowds were increasing throughout that time. So, you know, who really knows what the real answer is there with that?
Yeah.
And there's other options to explore, removing loop fixtures from the calendar without adding teams into it, and creating different events, like I've talked about, with potentially some sort of 9 circuit or something along those lines. So yeah, there's other things to think about there, I think.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's the sort of thing we can talk about and go around in circles over, can't we? And
yeah, because 2 years ago I'd have been like 14 teams. Yeah, look, London just went down by like one result, one close game at the end of the season, really. They went down by that year. Toronto were looking like they were investing and looking positive, and you had Toulouse looking like an increasing threat, Featherstone being consistently strong at championship level, Widnes, who you thought, you know, still had their academy at that point, were still producing lots of players, and they could have still come through as something, as well as Lee, who were in the Featherstone boat. So you thought 14 teams were totally possible. But now that money's gone out of the game, academies have dropped off the slate for some of those teams, or some of those teams have disappeared. It's a totally different feel.
Yeah, it really is. And I think...
And a 10-team competition, Sarah, that'd just be playing everyone 3 times,
problem, isn't it? You know, Super League's not, you know, things like looking... you know, towards the licensing situation that we had with the academies. I mean, I know that some of those have been overturned and changed slightly, but I think until clubs have solid academies, and I just think that there's bigger issues that are causing then all of this, and people's disillusionment with the game generally, I think. And I guess at the moment as well, you've got to throw in then, you know, people's finances and things like that, in terms of being able to crowd sizes.
Ultimately, if we had close, exciting games played by teams that have a lot of local talent and a few big names across the board, and you go to a game not necessarily knowing what the outcome would be, but expecting to be entertained, rather than sometimes thinking you know what the outcome would be, and also sometimes expecting to not be entertained, which is kind of the way I feel at the moment going to some of my team's games. That's where the problems are, not in necessarily how many teams are in the competition. Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, thanks everyone for getting their fan views in on those stuff on the Google form. I did put a link out on one of the news stories to encourage people getting in touch. So, you know, I did do what Rob asked me to do, but I'll try and do it more again next week if I get a chance. Shout out to BBC Sport Rugby League page, totalrl.com and loverugbyleague.com for providing the news stories for us to comment on, because of course they're doing great work, as I talked about. The French stuff with Love Rugby League's really good as well. Okay, that's the news covered. We're going to move into match reviews. Match reviews time then. Super League round 19. And Sarah, first of all, you're going to tell us about, I mean, what has been dubbed a historic win by the Castleford Tigers. The first time that they've ever won at the Totally Wicked Stadium since the 22nd of October 2020, when they beat Hull KR 38-24. But yeah, amazing stuff. No, but actually the first time they've beaten St Helens away for over 30 years. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, not quite as historic as when Hull finally won there after about 40 years. Well, actually, that is about 40 years now, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, it finished St Helens 10, Castleford 20 after being St Helens 4, Castleford 6 at half time. There were 7,050 people there, and it was refereed by Ben Thaler. In terms of the team stats, St Helens made slightly more metres at a slightly better average gain for more breaks with fewer errors and a better tackle success rate, but they lost. Individually, Greg Eden with 2 tries, 208 metres. Jordan Turner with 5 tackle busts, 144 metres. Ollie Holmes, 1 try. That'd have been 4, wouldn't it? 1 try, 43 tackles and 126 metres. George Griffin with 48 tackles, of which 12 were marker tackles, and he ran for 100 metres. In terms of the losers, James Roby made 53 tackles and didn't miss any. Tommy Makinson with 6 tackle busts and 172 metres. Alex Wormsley, 1 try, 5 tackle busts and 112 metres. Lachlan Coote with 1 try assist, 5 tackle busts and 108 metres.
Tell you what, that's not bad going, is it, from Tommy Makinson? 172 metres in 65 minutes before he was sent off.
I was going to say, sending off, yeah.
Yeah. He's received a grade C high tackle charge for that sending off offence. A 3-match penalty notice goes with that. So 3 matches on a grade C says that he must have already had one of these kind of charges in the last 12 months. 'Cause, is at the top end of that range. We had loads of fan views, so we'll probably see if we get a bit of input on any of the cards as we go through those, Sarah. I'll start with Pop the Viking said, a great win from Cass, who hung in well for a deserved win. Thought Cass were on the end of some tough calls early and also made some silly mistakes, but despite going behind, continued to put pressure on Saints. Thought all the cards were correct calls from the officials. A good game for the neutrals.
Neil Ormston said, it's just so easy to dislike Saints. They've got niggly defence down to fine art, which is super effective but so frustrating to watch. And God, they're dull in attack. Always a pleasure watching them lose. Well done, Cass.
Mark Butler said, I can't lie to you. As this game came to its conclusion, I was mentally preparing a review about a piss-poor depth in Super League being exhibited by Cass losing from an unlosable position. They averted that fire and brimstone, though, and that's good news. They were pretty great apart from the 15 minutes where their collective arsehole fell out. Did Bentley lose a pound and find a penny before the game? Angry bell end.
St David said, the best team on the night won. Hugely disappointing and frustrating from Saints. Worst performance since Catalan away. Far too many errors and penalties to boss the game. Sailor crap as usual. Thank goodness it's only the Pies next week. Straight back on the horse. Onwards.
Yeah, it was joint most penalties in a game of the games where we've got proper full stats. Anyway, at least this year, that game. So EFC 78JU said, it's too funny to watch St Helens lose either at home or away, and mostly it will be hilarious when they slip up second. I'm not going to jinx it, well, but at least go up against them and get something, Wigan. As they do have Tommy Makinson, who got sent off last night over something Charnley got away with on Marshall, but more worse, he went in with the shoulder. Castleford are making this a close race to get in there. Powell.
Carsten says, I was in a pub and can't remember much, but going with Twitter, Cass were better, the referee was shit, and there are a lot of D-heads in both teams.
Tom Andrews said, nice to see Coote getting his mistakes out of the way for the Rog Red and Whites before he steps into an entertaining team next year. Also, props to Sky for the amount of TV time Fat Boy Rob got.
Yep. 2 things on that. Coote made a lot of errors against us the week before as well. And moving on to TV star Fat Boy Rob. What a win, defensive effort and finish. The mighty Cass are back. Our goal line defence was almost perfect. Walmsley never tapped it for his try. Another brace for Eden, hashtag 2 more years. Another improvement from Danny R, including 100% goal kicking. Correct red, late and high with no arms up to tackle. Bentley should have gone as well from my angle. Saints don't like it up them. Hashtag Operation Piss the League is back on. Hashtag Coif.
At MikeWeb58 said, proof that an error-strewn, ugly game of Rugby League can still be exciting. No problem with the red card, but the Ben Thaler show wasn't edifying. A bit like a random generator decision-making machine on speed. One